Hello and welcome to the show. This is the Sales for the Nigerian Business Person podcast. It's available on Spotify, on Google Podcast, Apple iTunes, or any podcast player of your choice. So remember to subscribe for free once you're done listening to this episode. And please give me a 5-star review because so far the people who have left me reviews on any podcast platform have only given me 5-star reviews. So I think it's worth it. Today on the show, we're going to continue conversations with Remilekun, who's a podcast listener who reached out to me on LinkedIn. If you'd like to know who she is, what our previous history is, and the nature of our relationship, then listen to the last 2 episodes and you get caught up to speed. Also, apologies that I've been away for about a week. That's because there are a few things that are cooking in the oven, and I'm going to let you guys know about it in future episodes. So more collaborations, partnerships, and projects to expect from me going forward. And what that means to you, the loyal podcast listener, is that even though you might not be a part of those classes, those sessions, there's new stuff that you can hope to learn from the collaborations that I'm working with and with other people. So, with that out of the way, and now that we're caught up to speed, let's get on with the show. So, dear Remilekun, thank you very much for listening to the last episode and for the comments that you made afterwards. Now, I'm glad to see that you finally understand, or you now agree, that the return on time invested from spamming people and from all that rapid messaging and trying to get people to buy now, I'm glad you see that the return on time invested is low. But then, after that exchange, it now occurred to me that perhaps I might have given you and some of the listeners a wrong impression. The return on time is not necessarily low per se. If you're going to think of it in absolute terms, if you send out 100 messages, how many people are going to respond? In that sense, yes, you can say that the return on time invested is low. But then there are other factors to consider, which is how much money is going to come in at the end of the day per person who responds. So this is just an episode to make that correction before we move on to answering the larger question, which is if we shouldn't be getting in touch with people and asking them to buy now or subscribe now or whatever it is we want them to do, then what is the proper way to move business along? Because we can't spend all day just building relationships and making friends with people online. So, yes, the return on time invested from that kind of spam, high touch, high messaging approach is low. But that's the reason why the kind of people who use this kind of strategy are what we call whale hunters. Traditionally, we call them whale hunters in sales circles, or people who are trying to maximize the lifetime value of customers. So now let me explain in more details. Whale hunters are people who are looking for big fish, in quote. The idea is, if you catch one big fish, if you catch one whale, you're going to get enough returns to live for a while you continue this high spamming, high touch, high buy now, high do this, do that activity. The example that I gave in the last episode was 419ers, people who do advanced fee fraud. If this is your first time listening to the show and you're not Nigerian, just listen to the previous episode. You'll know what 419 is. But I'm sure you guys are going to get the point as we go along. 419 advance fee fraud. It's a kind of fraud. So 419ers, they are looking for big fish. They are not trying to scam people who are going to give them small money. So 419ers, they're not looking for someone who's going to give them $1 or £1. They're looking for big money. They're looking for the kind of money, they're looking for the kind of maga that when the person pays out, it can last for about 3 or 4 years while you keep on spamming and you keep up with the high messaging until you get the next mark, maga, mugu, whatever it is that you call them these days. And of course, it's relative to today's exchange rate. So the example that I gave in the previous episode was $50,000. But I didn't flesh it out, so let's flesh it out now. The 419er who is spamming today is looking for someone who's going to give $50,000. And of course, like I said in the last episode, if you send 1,000 messages to people asking for $50,000, the chances that somebody's going to reply is really low. So the thing is, you actually come up with a plan, or rather, they come up with a plan for sending messages, dozens or maybe hundreds of messages per day. So by the time the year is up, they have sent hundreds of thousands of messages. And if you send hundreds of thousands and one person falls for the con and the person gives you $50,000, at today's exchange rate, that is 37,851,000 naira. Let me repeat. You get one person out of 100,000 emails that you sent or messages to give you, you con them out of $50,000, then the return in Nigeria is 37,851,000 naira. That's according to Google. So, if we assume that the average Nigerian family spends between 4 to 8 million naira annually, I am just making a guess. I'm not saying that that's what Nigerian families actually spend or should spend. So, if they spend 4 to 8 million naira annually, then you can see that this money is going to last for a while until you get your next MAGA. Now, of course, a lot of people who enter into the Yahoo business, they start as young men. So if you're a young man who's trying to live within his means, then of course this 37 mil is going to last a long while. So if you are not a whale hunter in this context that I've given, then don't bother with this strategy, because you can see that it's not, it's worth the while for somebody engaged in whale hunting, because even though they're going to send thousands or hundreds of thousands of messages to get one response, that one response is going to be worth it. They're going to be able to feed on it for the next 1 to maybe 3 years while they continue that activity. They're only looking for one big kill a year, or maybe 2 or 3 big kills a decade, and for them, they are fine with that. Now, just like in the last episode, I'm going to repeat it here for those of you who are listening for the first time and who don't know who I am and who don't know the way I roll. This episode is not an endorsement of illegal activity. I am not saying do fraud. I am not saying get involved in 419. That's not how I roll. I was just looking for the most obvious example and the ones with the most outsized returns, so that you can understand the level of math that is involved for people who start this strategy. Because there are people who use this strategy for their businesses, whether legitimate or illegitimate. I was just looking for the largest kind of example possible so that you guys get the picture. So that's the level of math that is involved. Now, for those people who are trying to maximize customer lifetime value, now whale hunters are looking for one big kill. You get one person, you get a huge chunk of money. So that's the whole idea. Now there is people who are trying to maximize customer lifetime value. Those people are not looking for one big kill. They're looking for small bits of money, but they know that this person is going to give small bits of money consistently every day or every week or every year, and they're going to do so for a long period of time, and that is how they're going to make their profits. So that is the reason why Bet Niger, Sportbet, Starbet, and all these gambling companies in Nigeria, all these gambling sites, also they exist in the UK. Well, I haven't lived in America, so I don't know if they have that problem going on, but I'd be surprised if they don't have those sorts of businesses there. So that's the reason why these businesses will continue to spam you on SMS and email. So they send you that message, place a bet, Manchester United is playing Arsenal, place a bet, blah, 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 blah. You don't like that message, you hit block, and you think you're done with it. But then, somehow, next month, you receive another message from them, and you receive another one the month after, no matter how many times you block. The same thing with the emails. The reason why these people are going to continue, because they know that on an individual basis, it's not effective, but they know that all they have to do is to get you hooked once. And then if you place that first bet and you get hooked, you're going to get a lifetime habit of placing bets every day or every week. So they're going to make maximum profits on you or whoever places that bet over the lifetime. So they know that lots of people won't respond. But for the few people who respond, those people are going to be dedicated in the use of this product, this betting website, the betting app, the betting whatever it is, and that's how they're going to make their money. For instance, for those of us who have lived and worked in the United Kingdom, we know that, in Nigeria, it's now, there are lots of people who have started the whole betting and online gambling thing, but in the UK, it's established culture. It's not anything that people frown at, because there are people that I used to go to work with who that was their daily thing. You get down from the bus, you go to the store, you place your bet for £1, and then you go into the office. And so that's the sort of thing that they would do. So, one person placing a bet for £1 a week. Now, imagine one of these United Kingdom sport betting companies. Imagine they can get 1 million people out of the millions of people that live in the UK to place bets of £1 per week. That is going to be £52 million in a year. If you keep that habit up, if they're able to keep those people, those habits up, with the constant messaging and advertising and everything, if they're able to keep those people to continue with that habit for 7 years on average, some of you might say 7, that's excessive, but no, it's not. Believe me, I've worked with people while I was in the United Kingdom who have been betting for 10 years, betting for 15 years. I didn't know anybody of 20, but I know about 10 and 15. So it does happen. And for those of us in Nigeria who think it's unlikely, just watch. Sport betting is a new thing in Nigeria, but let's just watch. Over the next decade, you're going to find colleagues, co-workers, family members who already do this sort of thing. Because as we make this podcast episode, I have a cousin who has already gotten into the habit, and he's been doing this for 3 years. But remember, the money is not big. Today you place a 200 naira bet. Manchester is playing next week Friday. You go and place a 500 naira bet. And then after that, you place a 300 naira bet. These are small bits of money. In your mind, it doesn't add up that you have placed bets of 1,000 naira for this week. And maybe at the end of the month, you've placed bets of 6,000 naira for the month. You don't realize it because you're dropping small amounts of money. 200 naira here, 50 naira here, things like that. Small bets. But this is how it works. So, if the UK people are able to get someone to keep on betting for one person, to get them, the million people, to bet for 7 years on average, that is 364 million pounds, if my math is right. So please, you guys, confirm for those of you who are really good at math. So that's the reason why Bet Nigeria is going to keep spamming you until you die. You can block them today. Somehow they'll get another number and they'll keep on spamming you with this high touch messaging until you die. They'll continue to advise on TV and radio, and they'll continue sending you emails and whatnot, and the messages, because they don't want one person to give them a lot of money, and they don't need lots of people. They don't need 1 million Nigerians. They just need 200,000 Nigerians, 300,000, maybe 500,000 Nigerians in a few states. Capture a few people here and there, and see if you can get them to drop, 1,000 naira per week or maybe 2,000 naira per week, and do so consistently for the next 10 years. If you do the math, the profit is not bad for people who manage those companies very well. So, dear Remilekun, the return on time invested on these activities actually is not bad, depending on which kind of business that you are involved in. So don't write this kind of behavior off completely. However, don't engage in unethical industries or vice industries. We should not profit off of people's misery. 419 and other kinds of fraud is illegal. But unfortunately, I wish it were not so, because I have a cousin who is doing this. He's been doing this for 3 years now, wasting a lot of money. Gambling is now very legal in Nigeria. So the people who are engaged in these sorts of business in Nigeria actually are not breaking the law. So, Remilekun, if you were to invest in this kind of company, technically speaking, you wouldn't be breaking the law. But from one Christian to another, I really don't think this is where you should be putting your time, your money, your expertise, because I know that you're a very smart young woman. So I really don't think we should be putting our time and expertise into these sorts of things. But anyway, those are ethical issues that are beyond the scope of this podcast. But please do not defraud anyone. So, are there industries that can use spamming, high volume messaging, high touch messaging, straight buy messaging, this whole buy now, sign up, subscribe, that kind of thing? Are there industries, ethical industries, that can use this kind of messaging behavior? The answer is yes, and they're not illegal. And there's one of them that I personally am going to explore in the future. I am going to come up with a low-priced LMS. LMS is learning management system, either on an app or a website, I'm going to come up with an LMS for business education in the future. Imagine if I'm able to pull this off. If I'm able to get 1 million Nigerians to pay 2,000 naira weekly for business education, or maybe 5,000 naira per month for business education. The thing is, even if they're only paying 1,000 naira per month for business education, the value would still pan out correctly if it is executed right. If I'm smart enough, if I'm able to hook it up well enough, if I'm able to get the right team, if I'm able to build everything correctly, there's no reason why it shouldn't work. 1,000 naira a month for 1 million people, it would work. Now, this kind of business messaging can't be one-on-one. I'm responding to Remilekun. We're chatting WhatsApp one-on-one. I can't do that if the goal is 1 million Nigerians. I just can't. I can't respond to 1 million messages. So it's going to have to be high touch. We're going to have to be broadcasting messages, Facebook, what else? Emailing, high touch. If we get people on Telegram or WhatsApp groups, broadcasting messages, you get the picture. It can't be personalized. I can't be responding to Remilekun in the same way that I'm going to respond to 1 million Nigerians. So it's going to have to be automated. So it's not even going to be me. It's going to be bots, and maybe me checking the scripts on bots and things like that. Members of my team. But you get the whole point. It's going to have to be automated. It's going to have to be high touch. It's going to be straight to the point, call to action. Buy now, subscribe, or book here, inquire here. That kind of messaging. And it's going to be ethical because it's a learning management system. I'm not going to be selling drugs. I'm not going to be swindling people. I'm not going to be asking people to become gambling addicts. I'll be asking them to pay for business education, and the society is going to be better off for it. And the amount of money that they're going to spend is not going to be much. Think about it. 1,000 naira per month. If I'm able to get 1 million people to do that, we're supposed to be over 200 million folks in Nigeria for now, depending on who is counting. So the math on these sorts of things, can work. So Remilekun, don't write off this kind of messaging activity because of the previous episode, especially since you're going to be leaving the country soon if everything pans out for you. And in whichever country you end up in, there might be other industries where you can maximize customer lifetime value for good profits. It can happen where you use all this high touch messaging, high volume messaging, broadcast messaging, asking people to buy, asking people to subscribe, asking people to take the next step, asking people to do whatever. You get the whole point. So these opportunities abound. So it's not totally bad. It just depends on whether you're looking for whales or whether you're trying to maximize the lifetime value of a customer and you're taking small bits of money from them, provided you are delivering more than commensurate value. That's the only way that this thing works. If people think it's extremely valuable and all this education is there at 1,000 naira per month or 3,000 naira per month or whatever, it's a steal, then yes, they go for it. So that's how it works. The value delivered has to be outsized. So, Remilekun, keep an open mind, but don't do anything illegal. On the next podcast, we're now going to go straight into the question, if I'm not going to spam people on LinkedIn to make a sale, then what should I do? The answer is simple. It'll surprise you, but it'll need some work. So get ready. Now, Remilekun, I can't respond to specific questions in our last WhatsApp chat because it looks like since our last WhatsApp chat, you turned your message timer on again. So all the messages from last week have disappeared. I tried to explain that last week was a busy week. We're providing media coverage for the British Council. Some people have gotten the Commonwealth and Chevening scholarships awarded to them, and they should be leaving the country soon. So the High Commissioner, the British High Commissioner, how is it said? Is it the Commissioner from British? Well, anyway, you get the whole point. The High Commissioner from the UK hosted them at their residence. We provided media coverage for that. And then there was an information session to let people know how to apply, especially people who are people living with disabilities. So people who have mobility challenges, people who have visual or auditory challenges, things like that. So there was a session there to let them know how they can apply for these sorts of programs. So we provided media coverage for that as well. So yeah, even though I'm not shooting weddings and haven't shot for a while, I still enjoy the corporate stuff. I enjoy the corporate stuff, so I still do it. I don't actually pursue it, but if those gigs come in, then yes, I do them. So that's what took up our time. That's me and my partner in crime when it comes to photo and video or the visual stuff, Shegun. That's what we were up to last week. So that's why I was gone. So that's why you guys didn't see any episodes for 1 week. Where was I? Okay, yes. So, Remilekun, you've turned on the message timer. Messages are disappearing. So, since our last chat, I can't remember exactly what it is I promised you that I was going to respond to today. Because you said some stuff that made sense, and I was going to make a podcast episode responding to those specific things. So, if you remember what those things were, or if you seem to have a record, I can't see them because things have disappeared on my own end, in my WhatsApp chat. So if you remember, let me know. I'll incorporate that into the next podcast. Now, this is a warning for those of you who use WhatsApp for business purposes. I would say me and Remilekun, mentor, mentee, I would still consider that business purpose. So for those of you who use WhatsApp for business purposes, please turn off your default timer on these messages. The point of using text communication is not just to get a fast response. The advantage of using text communication is also that you have a memoranda of communications, a record of communications, a history of communications. That way, your communication will always remain on point. You and your customers and your associates will be able to refer back to something in the WhatsApp message, in the email, in the Telegram, in the SMS to say, oh, this is what we're supposed to be working on next. Or this is what we discussed last week. Or this is how much we agreed. Or this is our action point for the next month. Or this is the balance that is owed to me or that I'm supposed to owe to someone else. So that's the whole point of having text communications, not just fast responses. So please, it's a trend. Everybody's doing the whole default message thing. For those people who are having private conversations, yeah, sure, no problem. If you're sending your children's photos to someone, yeah, then please put on the default timer so that they see the picture and they're like, oh, congratulations, happy birthday to your son, and then the message disappears. I get it. But for business purposes, turn it off so that you have a record, you have a memoranda that you can refer to for future communications. Because there are some of you who are doing business, who negotiate with the client. You do so over WhatsApp, and then the client is now ready to pay next week, and the person says, okay, yes, before I pay, what did we agree on? If you have your message timers turned on, then both of you are going to be scrambling to say, no, this is what we agreed on, this is not what we agreed on. But if they're on, all you have to do is go back and screen grab or hit reply to the message, and then the person sees it there that, oh, okay, yes, it is true. We agreed for 20 units, 20 copies, 20 Ankara fabrics, 20 lollipops, and we agreed at 5,000 naira per one, so therefore I'm owing you 100k. So please turn off your default timers on the messages when it's for business communication, for business purposes. For private, when you want to send your pictures, children's pictures to grandma or grandpa, your son's birthday, your daughter's birthday, but you don't want grandma or grandpa to be able to send to that uncle or that auntie that you don't like, then yeah, put the thing on so that it disappears. Once grandma opens it, the thing will disappear, so she can't send to her sisters because you don't want your aunties who are nosy seeing the pictures. So, so that's it pretty much. Let's see, what else? Is there anything that I have left out? Okay, so that's it, basically, Remilekun. If you can remember what it is that we discussed in WhatsApp, because I can't remember the details. I remember the spirit of the conversation, but not the details. Send it to me and then I'll incorporate it in the next episode. So until then, Remilekun, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. And remember to share this episode with friends, family members, and associates if you're getting value. For the rest of you, that's all, folks. If you love what you've been hearing on the podcast and you think you're getting value and you have an inkling that you need a little bit more just to push you forward in your business so you can get some concrete returns, then hit me up on 080 6466 2140. You can call, that's fine. You can SMS, that's fine. You can WhatsApp, you can Telegram for the following support. Last week I spoke about the sales training and coaching that we have available. We also have business strategy consulting where we can work on your market positioning. You're coming into the market. How do you want to start out? How do you want to start advertising? How do you want to start looking for clients? We'll also be able to look at your expansion plans. Let's try and figure out what it is that makes sense, what it is that is most practical, and let's look at your overall business strategy to help you achieve your goals. So remember, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or your social media of choice. I'm no longer on Twitter or X. I've been banned. I mentioned why 2 episodes ago. And that's why today's podcast episode, or rather the last podcast episode, is relevant. And don't worry about the spelling of my name, email address, my photo. They're on the website where you're listening to this podcast episode, or just check the profile of the podcast app where you're listening to my voice, and it's all there, the spelling of my name. Now, for those of you who have dedicated savings goals, either for your business, children's education, your own retirement, or maybe your parents' retirement, hit me up. The number is 080-6466-2140. Country code is +234. For those of you who are reaching out from the UK, currently chatting with someone in the UK. So you've been out of Nigeria for a while. You can't remember how it works. Country code is +234. I'm affiliated with the financial institution that will give way better returns than Nigerian commercial banks. And the organization is a safe one. It's been in Nigeria for over 53 years. That's longer than I've been alive. And they have over 504 billion naira in assets. So that means they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And so hit me up if you're curious. I'll catch you guys at the next episode. And hopefully I'm not going to disappear for another week. Yeah, so that's it.